Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. There's something strange about walking into your own home after being gone too long. Not strange like unfamiliar, but strange like off. Like a puzzle that's been moved around slightly when you weren't looking. I'd only been gone 5 days. Work conference in Portland. One of those last-minute trips you can't really turn down if you want to stay on the promotion track. Brooke said she was fine holding down the fort. She always said that. She had a way of smiling and waving me off, like she enjoyed the solitude more than the company. I landed early, caught a red-eye that got me back in town before sunrise. I didn't call to say I was coming home ahead of schedule. Thought it'd be a nice surprise. Maybe I'd bring back bagels, walk through the door with coffee, kiss her on the cheek, and say, "Miss me?" The house looked the same at first. Clean, tidy, a little too tidy, maybe. Brooke never went overboard, but she liked her order. Still, something made my stomach twist the moment I stepped inside. Could have been the shoes by the door, lined up perfectly like a showroom display, not how she usually leaves them, kicked to the side in a rush. Or maybe it was the scent, lavender and something sharper, like a new candle had been burned just to scrub the air. I walked through the kitchen quietly. The fridge buzzed low, everything in its place. But on the island sat a wine glass, just one, empty, still with a lip stain on the rim. We weren't big drinkers. Not in the morning, not alone. I called out once just in case. "Brooke?" No answer. I figured she might still be sleeping. It was barely 7 a.m. Maybe I'd catch her just waking up. I grabbed my suitcase, wheeled it back toward the bedroom, but halfway down the hall, something pulled at my focus. The bathroom door was closed. Light on underneath. And then water running. The shower. That wasn't odd in itself. Brooke liked long showers. Always had. But there was a sound underneath the spray. Faint. A voice. A low laugh. Male. I froze. At first, I tried to logic my way through it. Maybe the radio was on. Maybe she had her phone playing a podcast. But then came another laugh. Clearer. Not a recording. Someone else was in the house. My pulse kicked up. I set my suitcase down quietly, stepped closer. The sound of two voices, talking, now laughing again. No words I could make out, just the tone. Light. Familiar. I didn't barge in. Didn't call her name again. I stood there for a full minute, rooted to the spot, feeling like my ribs had started to crack from the inside out. Eventually, I turned away. I didn't want to hear more. I walked to the office and sat down slowly. Took a breath. The kind you take when your body already knows something your brain isn't ready to say out loud. She didn't know I was home, and something told me I wasn't supposed to be. I told myself to be reasonable. Maybe her brother dropped by. Maybe it was a friend visiting and things were being misread. I clung to those thoughts for as long as I could, maybe 30 seconds. Then I saw the guest bedroom door was closed, blinds drawn. Unusual. She never used that room. I checked the floor near the edge. A pair of socks, 2 different sizes. Men's. Not mine. I didn't open that door. Not yet. Instead, I stepped back, looked around the house I'd lived in for 4 years, and tried to recognize what was left of my life in it. It felt unfamiliar now, like it had been lived in by someone else while I was gone. I didn't confront her that morning. Not because I was scared, because I wanted to know more. There's a difference between suspecting something and knowing. And I was going to know. I didn't ask questions that day. I played it cool. Steady hands, even breath like nothing felt wrong. When Brooke came out of the bathroom, wet hair, robe tied a little tighter than usual, she jumped at the sight of me in the kitchen. Her smile was delayed, just slightly. But I caught it, like a delayed reflex from someone who needed to remember how to act surprised. "You're back early," she said, adjusting her robe like she wasn't sure if she was dressed for a husband or for someone else. "Red eye got me in early. Figured I'd surprise you." She walked over and kissed my cheek, still damp from her shower. I didn't flinch, just nodded and handed her the coffee I'd picked up. "Was someone here?" I asked casually. She blinked. "What?" I heard voices. "Thought maybe your brother dropped by or something." She laughed. "No, no one. Probably the TV in the bedroom. I had the volume up while I was showering." I didn't call her out. Didn't push. I just nodded like the answer made perfect sense. But I knew that bathroom didn't have a line of sight to the TV. And the TV? It was off. Completely off. Not paused. Not muted. Off. She went about her day like nothing happened. Hair dryer humming through the walls. Music playing softly while she made breakfast. Some playlist she hadn't touched in years. The mood felt curated. Too upbeat. Like someone trying to fast forward through tension. I stayed busy too. Or at least acted like I was. Checked emails. Unpacked slowly. But all the while my thoughts kept circling that sound. That second voice. It wasn't loud. But it wasn't unfamiliar either. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I'd heard it before. That afternoon, I texted my friend Josh. We'd all gone out together a few times. Me, Brooke, Josh, and his girlfriend Erin. I figured if something strange was happening, Josh might have seen or heard something I hadn't. I sent, "You and Erin still hanging out with Brooke while I was away?" He replied, "Not really. Saw her once at the gym." "Why?" "Just checking." She said she was keeping busy while I was gone. That was all I needed to know for now. Later that evening, I stepped into the guest bedroom, the one with the door closed, the blinds still drawn. It smelled different in there. Not like dust or linen spray. Something sharper. Cologne, maybe. Well, I didn't know. I didn't touch anything at first. Just scanned the room. The bed was made too neatly. The lamp on the desk had been shifted, lightly, like someone sat there recently. The closet door wasn't fully closed. I opened it. Inside, tucked beneath an old box of books, was a men's hoodie I'd never seen before. Dark gray, oversized. A brand I didn't wear. No tag. Just faint cologne on the fabric. I pulled it out, turned it over in my hands. Still warm. Or maybe that was just adrenaline. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay awake, listening to Brooke's breathing beside me, wondering what she'd say if I held up the hoodie and asked, "Whose is it?" But I didn't. I needed more. Something that couldn't be spun as a misunderstanding. The next day, I got my chance. Brooke left for a hair appointment. Said she'd be gone 2 hours. I waited 10 minutes, then started looking. Not snooping. Not panicking. Just looking. I checked drawers, her closet, the bathroom cabinet. Nothing out of place. Then I moved to her jewelry chest. Inside, beneath her usual pieces, was a small gift box. Wrapped in dark paper, silver ribbon. Not labeled. I opened it slowly. Inside was a watch. Not mine. Men's, black leather strap. Face clean and expensive looking. Sleek. And with it, a handwritten note. "You always know how to make me smile. This is just a thank you for the quiet moments." No name. No date. Just that. I stood there, reading the note again, blood pounding in my ears. My throat felt tight. The words were too familiar. Too specific. I put the box back exactly where I found it. Then I went to the garage, found an old magnet from a broken speaker, and carefully held it near the watch's face, enough to throw off its timekeeping without leaving a visible mark. Call it petty. Call it controlled chaos. I needed her to give it away. I needed her to wonder why it stopped ticking. And when she asked someone, I'd know who. She came home smiling, asked if I want to take out. I said sure. She didn't mention the box, didn't mention the note, acted like the world was spinning just fine. But I was no longer orbiting the same way. She had a secret, and I just started watching. I kept my distance the next few days. Not physically, Brooke would have noticed that, but emotionally I held back. I played along. I made jokes at dinner, asked how her hair appointment went, listened to her stories about a coworker's dog chewing up a sofa. I nodded, I laughed, I matched her energy, but I was watching her every move, studying how she held her phone, how fast she locked the screen when I walked into the room, how she started checking the mailbox first, something she never used to care about. The shift was small, but once you know what you're looking for, even subtle changes stick out like a bad paint job under sunlight. That gift box haunted me. It was still buried in her jewelry chest, untouched. I checked every morning after she left for work. She hadn't moved it, hadn't opened it. And the watch? Still dead. Still perfectly still. Whatever quiet moments she was thanking someone for, they were frozen now, and she didn't know it. Then Friday came. I got home from running errands and found her in the kitchen with someone. A man I didn't recognize at first. Tall, broad shoulders, business casual, khakis, and a navy polo. They were laughing about something when I stepped in. Brooke turned and smiled a little too quickly. "Hey, you're home early," she said, stepping aside. "This is Logan. He just started in marketing." We were going over some onboarding stuff before Monday. Logan extended a hand, firm shake, steady eye contact. Nice to meet you. She's been getting me up to speed. Up to speed on what? I asked, keeping my tone casual. Company messaging, he said. Tone of voice, branding. It's more layered than I expected. Brooke's good at making things sound better than they are, I replied, locking eyes with her. She laughed, maybe a little too loud. Aaron's kidding. I wasn't, but I smiled anyway. They talked a bit longer. I watched every little thing. How close he stood, whether their arms brushed, how often she looked at him. There was nothing overly suspicious. Polite distance. No secret smiles. Still, I felt something stir. A hunch, maybe a reason to keep him in my orbit. That night, I pulled up his name online. LinkedIn. Mutual friends. College background. He seemed clean. Too clean, almost. No tagged photos. No posts with her. No common threads outside work. It felt like the kind of distance someone maintains when they're trying not to leave trail. I wasn't ready to accuse him, but he was my first real lead. If something was happening, he was in the right place at the right time with the right face for it. The next morning, I acted on impulse. Brooke left early to go for a walk before breakfast. She didn't invite me. That's how I knew it wasn't a real walk. I waited 10 minutes, then went back to her jewelry chest. The gift box was gone. I checked everywhere. Nothing. The drawer had been rearranged. Subtle, but I knew it too well. The moment you start hiding things differently is the moment you stop trusting they're safe. I went back into the garage and dug out the smallest Bluetooth tracker I owned, left over from a bike I sold last year. Slipped it into her purse that afternoon while she was folding laundry in the bedroom. I told her I was heading out for a haircut. She waved me off, eyes on podcast. As soon as I was out the door, I circled the block, parked, and opened the tracker app. She was still home. 10 minutes later, she was moving. First to the gas station, then across town. She stopped at a small shopping plaza. I waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then she moved again, this time to a private residence. Nice neighborhood. 2-car garage. Nothing remarkable. I didn't approach. I just made a mental note of the house number. Took a photo from the corner. And I waited. 25 minutes later, the tracker moved again. Back home. Smooth. Unhurried. While I walked in, she was already in the kitchen making tea. Hair pulled back. Calm as ever. Get a haircut? She asked. Yep. Looks good. Thanks. I wanted to ask where she'd been. Why she was dressed up just to walk. But I didn't. Not yet. Later that night, I went out to the trash bins. Tucked inside one of the black bags was the gift box. Ribbons still tied, untouched but crumpled. The watch was gone. The note was missing. Whoever it was for had it now. And it wasn't Logan. Because 2 days later, I saw Logan with someone else, holding hands outside a coffee shop with a girl half a head shorter, brunette, wearing his hoodie. Whatever Brooke was hiding, it wasn't him. And that terrified me more than if it had been. Because now I knew she was lying. I just didn't know to whom. I couldn't stop thinking about that house. The one Brooke visited on her so-called walk. It wasn't just the visit itself. It was how smooth she was when she came back. Like she'd practiced the rhythm of deception so well, she didn't even blink anymore. And the gift box? That had been discarded like it never mattered, like it served its purpose and no longer needed to exist. I started obsessing over the house. Pulled up public records. Checked the property owner. Name didn't ring a bell. Single male, mid-40s, works in real estate. That alone didn't mean anything. But I wasn't looking for coincidences anymore. I was looking for patterns. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I followed her. She said she was going to meet a friend for lunch. Said it casually, like she didn't even think I'd be interested. She'd used that tone a lot lately. Just enough detail to sound honest. Just enough detachment to suggest I shouldn't question it. I waited until she pulled out of the driveway, then followed a few cars behind. Traffic was light. I kept my distance. Every turn she made, I matched. Until, finally, she pulled into the same neighborhood. The same house. I parked at the end of the street and watched. She walked up like she'd been there before. Knocked once, didn't wait long. The door opened. A man greeted her. Tall. Bald. Black t-shirt and jeans. I couldn't hear anything from where I sat, but I saw the hug. Too long. Too familiar. My chest tightened. I didn't even realize my hand had balled into a fist against the steering wheel. She'd lied to my face again. I waited 30 minutes. Enough time for whatever charade they were playing. Then I drove away, not because I didn't want to do something, but because I didn't know what the right move was yet. Later that evening, I told her I was meeting Josh for drinks. Another lie. I drove back to the house. Parked closer this time. Walked the sidewalk until I reached the gate. There was a name on the mailbox. R. Lewis. Didn't help. Still unfamiliar. But the light was on inside, and I could see the man through the blinds. Alone now. Watching TV. Beer in hand. No sign of Brooke. I waited another 10 minutes. Then knocked. He opened the door with a raised eyebrow. Can I help you? I hesitated, then asked, You know Brooke? He looked surprised. Yeah, she was here earlier. Something wrong. I stepped in closer, not threatening, just searching for truth. What's she doing here so often? He laughed once. She's tutoring my daughter. SAT prep. What? I blinked. She's been coming by for a couple weeks now, he said. I pay her cash. We're between regular tutors. My mouth went dry. Your daughter? She's at her mom's tonight, he said, motioning to the living room. Want to come in? I can show you the workbook. I stood there for a second, then shook my head. No, it's fine. He paused. She didn't tell you? No, I said. She didn't. I walked away before I could embarrass myself further. Back in the car, I sat still for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The worst part wasn't that I was wrong. It was that I wanted so badly to be right. I wanted something solid, something I could point to and say here. This is why it all feels wrong. But it wasn't him. When I got home, she was curled up on the couch watching a movie, bowl of popcorn balanced on her knees. She looked up and smiled. How was Josh? Fine, I said. Everything okay? Yeah, elite. Everything's fine. But it wasn't. Not even close. Because even though our Lewis wasn't the man in the shower, someone was. And now I had no idea who. I tried to let it go. I told myself I was paranoid. That the tension in the house was just me projecting, searching for cracks in the walls that weren't really there. But the thing about suspicion, it doesn't need proof to survive. It just needs silence. And Brooke gave me plenty of it. After the false lead with our Lewis, I kept my distance. I didn't want another confrontation where I walked away looking like the unhinged husband chasing ghosts. But even with that mistake still echoing in the back of my mind, something told me I wasn't wrong about her. I was just wrong about who. The change came on a Tuesday. Brooke came home late. Not unusually late. Just enough to raise a question. Said she had errands after work. That was her word. Errands. No specifics. No receipt in her purse. Just a lot of vague hand motions and a tight-lipped smile when I asked how her day went. She used to overshare. Every meeting, every annoyance, every weird lunchroom story. Now, she spoke in headlines. No details, just summaries. I made dinner that night. Chicken stir-fry. One of her favorites. She barely touched it. Said she wasn't hungry. You feel okay? I asked, watching her push food around with her fork. Yeah, just tired. You've been tired a lot lately. She didn't look up. It's just work stress. It'll pass. I nodded, but something stuck in my head. The last few times she said she was tired, she'd left again after dinner. Quick shower, fresh change of clothes, hair styled up instead of down. That night, I followed her. She said she was going to the pharmacy to grab vitamins. I waited 10 minutes, then checked the app linked to the tracker I'd slipped inside her car door pocket. She wasn't at the pharmacy. She wasn't even near one. She was parked outside a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Not the house from before. A different area. Different zip code. I didn't go there. Not yet. I just watched her down on the screen, stay still for 40 minutes, then move again. She came home humming. Light on her feet. Asked if I wanted to watch something. She hadn't offered to sit with me in weeks. I declined. Told her I was tired. Her eyes flicked to mine for a split second, like she was checking my pulse. You sure? Yeah. She nodded and disappeared into the bedroom, like nothing was out of place. The next day, I checked her car. Glove box was clean. Center console held nothing but gum and a charger. But in the back seat, under the passenger mat, I found a crumpled receipt. Not from a pharmacy. From a small diner. Out of the way. 2 entrees. 1 coffee. 1 tea. I folded it carefully and slid it into my wallet. That evening, I asked her how the pharmacy run went. She blinked once. It was fine. They didn't have what I needed. I nodded slowly. What did you need again? Just vitamins. She looked at me. Why? Just wondering. She tilted her head. Aaron, are you okay? That was her tell. The shift. When she played concerned, it meant she felt the ground shift beneath her. I'm fine, I said. You've just been distant. She leaned back. I told you, I've been stressed. Sure. Her eyes narrowed. Why are you being weird? I shook my head. I'm not. But I was. And she knew it. She tried to change the subject, asked about work, then the weekend, then mentioned maybe going to visit her mom. That one caught my attention. Your mom? I asked. You just saw her, didn't you? She hesitated. Yeah, but she's been asking to do brunch again. Thought I might surprise her. I said nothing, just filed it away. Because that night, I checked her text history. Nothing from her mom. No mention of brunch. No mention of anything. In fact, the last text from her mother was a meme about candles and wine from a week ago. Something wasn't right. The next morning, I watched her leave again, this time dressed up for a client breakfast. Her outfit didn't match the excuse. Too casual for a client, too polished for a random errand. And she took a different car. Her stepdad's. She'd borrowed it for the weekend to give hers a break. That was the story. But her car wasn't acting up, and her stepdad didn't live close. By now, my instincts were louder than logic. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and whoever was helping her cover it up was someone I hadn't looked at closely enough yet. I started backtracking, thinking through the people in her life who flew under the radar, and one name surfaced, a name I hadn't thought twice about. But now I couldn't stop thinking about it, and the idea of it made my skin crawl. There's a moment when doubt turns into certainty, and when it does, there's no going back. You stop second-guessing what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. It sharpens, clears, crystallizes into something hard and cold that no explanation can melt. That's where I was now. I wasn't wondering if Brooke was lying. I knew she was. I wasn't asking if she was seeing someone else. I just didn't know who or how long. But I was going to find out. And this time, I wasn't giving her a single inch to dance around the truth. The morning after she borrowed her stepdad's car, I called in sick to work. Not because I was sick, but because I was done waiting, done playing the passive role in a story I clearly didn't write. I watched her leave again. Same calm routine, same fake smile, same. I got a few errands and might stop by Mom's. She didn't know I'd already checked her mom's social media. She was in Sedona for the weekend with friends. Brunch wasn't happening. The moment Brooke's taillights disappeared, I followed. Not from the car. On foot, 2 blocks behind until she hit the main road. Then I took the back route, jumped in my car, and tracked her with the GPS I'd placed in her purse lining weeks ago. The signal took her across town again. Not to a public place. Not a gym, not a store. A neighborhood. Same as before, but not the same house. This was a cul-de-sac. One of those quiet, tucked-away pockets no one drives through unless they live there. She pulled into a long driveway and disappeared into a garage. I parked on the next street over, heart thudding like a slow drumbeat, and waited. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. I didn't move. The house was modest, single-story, dark blue siding, one security camera above the garage door, and an overgrown bush half blocking the front bay window. I was too far to hear anything, too far to see inside. But my gut screamed louder than anything logic had left to say. I wanted to storm the driveway, bang on the door, force the truth into the open. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I wanted more than just confirmation. I wanted proof. When she came home later, she acted tired. Said traffic had been terrible. Said her mom was feeling better. Said she was going to shower and crash early. I nodded. Didn't argue. Let her walk past with a towel over her shoulder and the same fake story on her breath. That night, I sat at the dining room table with my laptop open, not working, just staring at the screen, thinking, replaying every subtle shift in her habits. How she stopped using perfume around me, but always wore it before errands. How she angled her phone away when I entered the room. How she hadn't initiated a real conversation in weeks unless it was about the schedule or groceries or something meaningless. Then I remembered something. Her stepdad, Chuck, he'd been around more lately. Not in any suspicious way. At least not at first glance. Just a few unexpected drop-ins. helping her hang a picture in the guest room, borrowing a drill, returning a book, each one small, unmemorable. But the frequency was new, unusual, and then it clicked. The car. The car she borrowed. It was Chuck's, the same one that pulled into the cul-de-sac earlier. I felt the blood drain from my face. My breath caught in my throat like I'd been punched and couldn't recover. It couldn't be. It shouldn't be. But the pattern didn't lie. The next day I tested something. I told Brooke I had a meeting after work. Said I'd be home late. She smiled a little too easily. Said she'd probably turn early. Instead, I parked down the block. Waited. Watched the house. An hour later, a familiar vehicle pulled into the driveway. It wasn't Brooke's. It was Chuck's. I didn't want to believe it, but I just watched him walk into my house. While I sat in my car with fists clenched and heart pounding like thunder. I didn't rush in. I didn't explode. I let them have their time, because I needed mine. And this time, I was going to end it my way. I didn't sleep the night I saw Chuck walk into my house. I sat in my car until the engine turned cold, until the street lamps buzzed over my windshield like a spotlight on my own humiliation. The moment I'd been circling for weeks finally had a face, and it was one I never expected. That kind of betrayal doesn't land all at once. It creeps in. You don't feel the weight right away. You just go numb, and the numbness protects you while your world rearranges itself into something you no longer recognize. I drove around for hours, parked in an empty lot behind a grocery store, let the radio play whatever came on, not hearing a word of it. I wasn't angry yet. That would come later. At first, all I felt was stillness. Not peace. Just the calm you feel before something breaks. The next morning, I went home before sunrise. The house was quiet. Brooke was already gone. Left a note on the counter that read, running errands. Be back by noon. No smiley face. No heart. Just those words, spaced too perfectly to be natural. I walked past it and headed straight for the guest room. Nothing seemed out of place. Bed made. Lamp off. Clochette door shut. But the air felt off like someone had just stepped out. I scanned the room and froze. There, just behind the curtain, was a pair of socks. Not mine. Not Brooke's. Large, gray, slightly worn. Folded neatly on the windowsill, as if whoever had taken them off planned to return for them later. That was the detail that sealed it for me. Not the socks themselves. The placement. The casualness. Like this wasn't a first visit. I didn't touch them. I didn't need to. Instead, I went to the office and pulled out the small camera I'd bought weeks ago. It was meant for the garage, but I never installed it. Small, discreet, motion-activated. I connected it to my laptop, configured it for silent recording, then set it up behind a picture frame in the hallway facing the guest room door. A second one went on the kitchen shelf, angled toward the back door. I debated installing a third in the hallway bathroom, but decided against it. I didn't need every angle. Just enough to trap the story between frames. I waited. That Friday, I told Brooke I had to fly out for a meeting one night in Chicago, quick turnaround. She nodded too easily, didn't ask for details, didn't offer to drop me off. Just smiled and said, safe flight. It wasn't a smile that reached her eyes. It was the kind of smile someone wears when they think they've been given the all clear. I didn't go to Chicago. I booked a cheap motel 2 towns over and monitored the cameras from my phone. At 8:43 p.m., the kitchen camera lit up. At 8:46, the hallway camera caught the front door. And at 8:48, Chuck walked in. I stared at the screen, unmoving, jaw tight, hand clenched around my phone. He didn't act nervous, didn't tiptoe or hesitate. He moved like someone who'd been there before, like someone who belonged there. Brooke followed seconds later, laughing, tossed her bag on the counter, poured 2 glasses of wine. I watched them toast, sip, disappear into the hallway. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I didn't follow the feed anymore. I had what I needed. The next morning, I returned home before they woke up. Slipped in through the back door just after sunrise. I checked the footage, saved it, made copies on a flash drive, on a backup hard drive, in a cloud folder with a private link. Brooke came into the kitchen 20 minutes later, hair still damp from a shower, robe tied loose. She jumped when she saw me standing there. You're home early, she said, voice too casual. Flight got canceled, I said. Storms up north. She nodded slowly, watching my face. You okay? Yeah, elite. Just tired. She didn't ask more. She poured herself coffee. I watched her drink it, her hands too steady, her eyes too calm. She thought I didn't know. Thought the lies still worked. She didn't know I'd seen it all. Didn't know I was already planning the end. And I wasn't going to whisper it. I was going to play it out loud. I wasn't interested in yelling. I wasn't after some explosive scene where furniture got thrown and words lost their shape. That would have let her off too easy. Chaos always leaves room for confusion. I wanted clarity. Final, painful, irreversible clarity. The kind that cuts through denial with no place to hide. I waited until Sunday to pull the trigger. It was perfect, Brooke's idea, actually. Her mother, Denise, was coming over for brunch. Just the three of us. Pancakes, fresh fruit, polite conversation layered with surface-level warmth. The irony almost made me laugh. Brooke had been extra sweet that week, making breakfast twice, asking about my work, even offering to do laundry, which she hadn't touched in months. She thought things had smoothed over. She thought her lie had legs. And Chuck, he was invisible back in the shadows, like the whole thing had never happened. But I had the video. I had everything. Still, I wanted one more touch, a closing note. I opened a new folder on my computer, named it Memories, imported the footage from the camera in the hallway, and overlaid it with soft music. Nothing dramatic, just quiet, pretty background music, the kind people use in vacation slideshows. I cut the clips together cleanly. A few glances, the wine, the hallway walk, just enough to tell the truth without a single word spoken. I paired it with a title screen. This week in our home. And that was it. Sunday came warm and sunny, like it was mocking me. Denise arrived with a pie and a big hug. She smiled like she hadn't cried in a decade, and said the house felt so peaceful. I smiled back. Brooke moved through the kitchen like nothing had changed. Coffee brewing, toast popping. She looked more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. Maybe she thought she had pulled it off. Maybe she thought I'd convinced myself there was nothing to worry about. I sat at the head of the table. Let them chat. Let Brooke tell her mom how we'd been reconnecting, how things were feeling more balanced lately. I feel like we've turned a corner, she said, placing a stack of plates on the table. I nodded slowly. I agree. And I actually put something together this week. A little video. Thought it'd be fun to share. Brooke paused. A video? Yeah, I said, standing up. Just some memories. Thought it might make brunch more memorable. Denise clapped her hands gently. Oh, I love those. You're always so good with this stuff. I walked into the living room, grabbed the remote, and mirrored the screen for my laptop. Brooke followed behind, drying her hands with a towel, brow furrowed, just slightly. She still didn't know. Still thought it might be some collection of landscapes or vacation clips. I hit play. It started slow. A black screen. Then the music. Light, simple piano. Then the video. Brooke's kitchen. The front door. Chuck stepping inside. Her right behind him. Laughing. Wine glasses. A kiss on the cheek. A lingering look. Then both disappearing down the hall. Silence. Except the music. Denise didn't move at first. Her hand froze mid-reach toward her coffee. Brooke gasped quietly. The color drained from her face so fast it looked like someone flipped a switch. What? What is this? She whispered. I didn't turn. The screen faded to black. Then one final image appeared. A home deserves honesty. I paused the video and turned around. Denise stood slowly, her face pale, trembling. Is this? Yes, I said. It's exactly what you think. Brooke stepped forward. Aaron, I can explain. No. I cut her off, reaching for the envelope I'd tucked behind the laptop. You don't get to explain. You had chances. You made choices. I dropped the manila envelope onto the table. Thick. Final. Divorce papers, I said. Already filed. A copy for you, and one for your mother. She's going to need it too. Brooke's voice cracked. Aaron, please. Denise was already backing away, hands over her mouth. No. No. Not Chuck. I stepped past them, grabbed my keys, and opened the front door. I'll be out before the end of the day. Everything I don't take, you can keep, including the silence. Brooke reached out, but I moved past her. No more words. No more doubt. No more waiting. By sunset, I was gone, and a Craigslist post went up that night. Queen bed. Barely used. Unless you count your wife cheating in it. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.